I can't imagine in any way, shape, or form not doing this completely side by side. And yes, I feel like I'm the fucking king, but the queen is as important. And I always joke, and I think it's a little toxic, and I want your take on it, especially for the women who are probably going to come after me on this. I believe I'm 50.1.
Yeah.
And you're 49.9.
And I want that.
So we got an interesting one today, my love.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this one.
Who is paying for dinner?
Not me.
I didn't even think this was a thing. Like, if I didn't see it in real life, I wouldn't believe it was a thing.
Yeah.
First time I remember this is back in the Quad Cities. The bill comes and there was an exchange between the people we were with saying, are you paying or am I paying? Which kind of blew my mind. Now, I don't know if I'm just an old school New York Italian. You know me, I want to pay for everything all the time for everybody. But it kind of threw me off. Like, holy shit, couples actually do it this way? Like, they have different accounts? And
it was eye-opening to see that this existed. And with couples, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know you've had relationships where the man didn't pay for everything and it was very transactional. It's never been like that in my life. Like, regardless if I had the money or not, I always paid.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this is considered, I mean, I don't really care, but if this is considered toxic, like, oh, you know, hold the door, pay the bill.
I don't think it's toxic.
Be the fucking man. Like, to me, like, if I'm a woman, I would be like, I don't need you to do this, but I want you to.
I think we need to set the table because I have two comments first.
Who pays for what in the relationship, or are all of your finances integrated and intermingled, or are they separate?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And so when we first met, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think right off the bat, there was like one time I paid for dinner, right? Like you took me out, you wined and dined, you did everything. You paid for everything. And then one time I think I got a concert or something and you were expecting to pay for it. And I was like, no, I'm paying for this.
Yeah.
And you were like, okay, fine. But it was like the only time I actually remember in our relationship that we were separated. That's the only time. Everything else other than that, I remember being combined financially.
We talked about a prenup in the beginning when we were getting married.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I owned a house. It was a couple $100,000 cash. So when we sold it, I had about $300,000 to my name.
Yep.
You had about $100,000 to your name, which was shit. That was great. We thought we were the richest people in the world.
I was.
Right.
No, I'm just
And I remember it wasn't necessarily me. My dad was starting to accumulate some money, and I was like worried about protecting him. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, but I remember going, and I think we talked to somebody. I was like, screw this. I don't want to go into this with a prenup. I mean, not like we had a ton.
Well, and I had a mortgage on my house, an FHA loan. And other than that, though, I really didn't have any debt. So there was like no debt coming into the relationship, which I think definitely helped not complicate it.
I think we had to be so independent so quickly that we both had this feeling like we didn't want to owe anybody anything. Mm-hmm. You know, I have asked for help. The only people I really have allowed to help me in that capacity is my father, right? And even the little bit of debt you did have, I remember I was like, I think it was like a couple of thousand to your grandmother, and you were like, everyone owes her money. I was like, no, we're paying this money. Mm-hmm. I just don't like to look back, right? So maybe it's a control thing, but ultimately, back to like our feelings around money, scarcity and abundance, I just always felt like what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. I mean, it just feels so transactional. I don't think there's many things about the way I do things or you do things that's transactional. I mean, everything I talk about is going from transactional to transformational. That's what I say, relational, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was such an eye-opener. It was almost like a shock. Like, wait a minute, you got different accounts?
Yeah, we had no idea that was even
like
how
your
people
money goes,
did things.
How the hell does that happen?
And for me, when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, you're willing to have children with this person. You're willing to be sexual and be intimate and be vulnerable and share your entire life and say vows for however long you stay married. But yet you're not willing to share your accounts with these people and your money and your finances. And so I think when we heard that concept, both of us were like, first off, we didn't even know people did it that way. And second, for us, it was so foreign. And I just felt like I would never come up I would never be in a relationship that I had to come up to you and be like, hey, babe, can you get the kids' tuition this year? Or anything. Like, I would be like, no, they're your fucking kids too. Like, we're in this together. And if you're going down, I'm going down, and vice versa. Like,
let me ask you a question.
Just so foreign to us.
If we were to get a divorce, how would you split the money?
50-50.
Yeah.
Everything 50-50. I'd be like, half of it's yours, half of it's mine. Your inheritance is yours. My inheritance is my inheritance of debt is mine. But 100%, I feel like it's 50-50.
What if you made, on your own, without any help from me, the lion's share of the money? Would you still want it to be 50-50?
If we were getting divorced, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then I would just go make my own money.
You see, and you called it, because that's how I feel. And this is very interesting, because I think that is not only an alpha way of thinking of it, but a male, masculine way of thinking about it. Because I believe that. I believe you have scarcity about what's mine and what's yours when you don't have faith in yourself. If you took me for everything I was worth, took whatever my father was leaving me for, which is not a ton, but it's a decent amount, I would be like, well, I guess I got to go build this bitch again.
And you'd be in the best shape of your life.
And
fuck the hottest girls, and you'd make my life miserable.
Hottest fucking
I would
girl.
do the same to you.
Yeah. You want to go get one together?
No. Not yet, anyways.
But yes, you see, so we have that same mentality, but that's an abundant way of thinking about it.
Yes. But even when going back to abundance, because I think this is really important. When I first met you, I was very scarcity minded about money. And I'm a Capricorn, so money is important.
True, not scarce in the fact of, I think you were looking backwards in scarcity, but forwards in abundance, because you had businesses, you were making money, no one was supporting you. Like, that's where I believe we were in so much alignment. And that's why I believe you do have to make sure when you share your life with somebody that these values and these future conversations better be in line. Because I don't look at you as scarce about money. You were cheap in some ways only because you never wanted to be poor again.
Totally. And that's what I knew. My upbringing was very much like, you have to work your ass off to make money. You have to save every penny. You don't need to ask anybody for money. And so even now, when I look back at my relationship with money, I have this mentality of like, I don't want to have to ask anybody for anything, and I want to be able to do it myself.
We've talked about this before, but I grew up the same exact way. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is I think I was poorer than you and accelerated past you. And you stayed probably, I always say I was poor, not hungry. My dad hates it, but when my mom and my dad got divorced, we didn't have anything, right? Yeah. And so, but my dad took some chances that made us get to middle class faster than, let's say, you were already there. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you an example of my father. When I finally, this is going to date me, but I finally was going to get a TV in my room, a 19-inch Toshiba. I remember it beautifully, right? My father made us go to no less than 7 different places looking for the best deal.
Was it Radio Shack?
No, back in New York, we had Nobody Beats the Wiz. We had PC and Richardson. These
I've never even heard of those.
Crazy Eddies.
We would go to Radio Shack and get all of our gadgets.
And so I remember it was $119, and he found it for $99. And I said, finally, I go, Pops, by the time we go to a couple more places, you're going to waste that money in gas. Like, this is ridiculous. Let's just buy the buy the TV. Right? But that's how my father was. He was so poor. And I think that was that generation. When he gave me $20 or $50, I'd have to tell him exactly every single dollar where it was spent. And then he would judge on if I wasted it or not. So he wasn't just handing me money. And like, there's good things about this. So, but it made me want the best things. And not that I didn't respect money, but then I wanted to spend it even more. Whereas you were like, you went in his route. Mm-hmm. Like, count it all.
Yeah, count it all. But I it's more so of, I just have to have the security, you know?
Do you remember when we first started dating and I would buy dinner for everybody and you started getting pissed off at me?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I don't know. I was like, why are you buying dinner for everybody?
No, you were like, do not dare fucking buy this dinner. That's what you'd say.
Oh, I don't remember that exactly. But I think for both of us, there was always this mutual respect about how much you're spending, what you're spending it on. And maybe things would be different. Maybe we would have to have joint accounts if one of us was just always buying shit and the other person wasn't.
I don't know. If that was the case, we would have a trust issue or a respect issue.
Yeah,
and then we'd
that's
have a
probably
deeper
true.
issue. There's a great saying that the two things that will expose you more than anything is how you are when you get money and when you're drunk, right? It kind of shows who you are. It's going to expose you if you're abundant. Like I've seen money just absolutely destroy people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've seen it actually activate them. Like I have a friend who became, who's in a bad place, became the main guy, believe it or not, at a strip club. And he started getting money and he transformed. He was a miserable, bitter guy and like just scarcity driven. And he became the most generous, happy person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so you got to deal with that in yourself and then deal with that with the other person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and my parents, I mean, when you're talking about that, like my dad was, they played the traditional roles while they were married for the most part. But my mom was a stay-at-home mom, took care of us kids, asked my dad for money. Dad paid for everything and also kept her in barriers, right? Like there was only a certain amount she could spend for school supplies. There was only a certain amount she could do for X, Y, and Z. So I think sometimes I look back at that and I'm like, yeah, that's never going to be me. I want the ability to just spend it on what I see fit, right? But even now, and I work, and so I also contribute to a lot of the income, but there's like a level of respect that I have where I'm like, okay, over this amount, I need to have a conversation with Dave.
I remember when we made 250,000 together and then 500,000 together and then on and on and on and on, right? And I remember joking and saying, you just keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah,
like,
me. You would get mad at me, actually.
You'd be like, I'll stop working when we make this amount of money.
When you make $1 million. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're never going to stop. We can inherit $25 million tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're going to be in some kind of growth thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But you can't really use it as that example. Like, this is something that is growth. And if we take it even further, like, and this is like a higher level conversation that people have to commit to. Like, what's the root of this? What is the whole point of our individual lives versus our collective lives?
Yeah.
We agree where growth is the game.
Yeah.
That's the point of life. Not growth in just money, growth in appreciation, growth in love, growth in gratitude, growth in just freedom and unveiling ourselves, right? So we're connected on this type of stuff.
Yeah. But if one of us wasn't, it would probably be a bigger issue.
The foundation's fucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Because we drop a lot of money on coaches and growth and our businesses.
And we still have weirdness around, I still can't buy myself a $50,000 watch.
Yeah, and I still have weirdness about you wanting to buy a really nice car.
I know, because I was talking about the Bentley and you're getting weird about it, right?
I know, I still have not wrapped my head quite around that. Yeah.
I know, but that, you see, if you really look, and it's easy to measure this in materialistic ways, but if you look at people who are constantly growing, they use money as a tool. You can't grow if you don't know, or no risk it, no biscuit, right? And it's weird because if you get into that mentality, I feel like I could justify spending money on anything.
Yeah, no, same. Even like, for example, Tony Robbins events when we were younger, I was like, well, this is going to make me grow as a human and it's going to I'm going to excel in this specific area. And so then I was like, I don't care what it costs because I'm willing to do that. So if I just can't wrap my head around your Bentley yet for me to be like, oh yeah, baby.
But I could spend $50,000 on a coach and you're cool with it.
You could spend $100,000 on a coach and I'd be cool with it.
Duly noted. So
and like your health, anything like that, I'm like, great. But for me, I justify even my horse. You threw it right back at me about having the horse, and even though the horse is significantly less than the car,
so let's unpack this then. Like the horse is a great example. So one of your dreams always has been having a horse. Now I've had horses my whole life, so it wasn't but it felt like something that was expensive, hard to do. For me, it was like, oh, you could just go buy a horse, right?
Yeah.
And so your scarcity came out. One of your goals was to ride horses. So you ended up sharing this horse at $25 an hour, this thing, a Mustang out in the freaking middle of nowhere that I thought you were going to get killed. And finally, I'm like, what are you doing? Let's just get a real horse.
Yeah. And I was shocked that you were supportive of it. I was blown away.
Shouldn't even have needed my permission.
I know, but I still am. it's not just about the money. I never thought it was about the money. I thought it was about the responsibility and the commitment that it takes to take care of a horse, which you knew about.
Well, I said if she didn't like it, we could always sell it. Like, to me, like that, this isn't a dog. Well, although we did get rid of a dog, but technically you're supposed to, you don't
No,
have to
I'm never getting rid of the horse.
You don't have to keep a horse forever. People, they do. I know you're not. You want to collect them all.
No, I'm going to keep Cruz forever though.
Of course. So, but even then I was like, go spend 15, 20,000 on a horse. Next thing you know, you started in the auctions and it was 25. And I was like, shit, I'm not going to get out of here for less than 50. And then we went and did the whole thing. And even the bidding, you were like, you take control of it. And I went 10,000 above. We ended up with a $60,000 horse, right? That costs low end, a couple thousand a month. And people think we're nuts.
Yeah.
Right. But we did it with the RV. We went and we flew and we bought a $170,000 RV that required a home loan, right? We've done this type of shit over and over again. It's just, so the only problem I have with you though, with this is you think that your things are worth it and that what other people want is not fucking worth it.
It depends on what it is.
Of course, but you don't get to tell me what, like, so I may be going to Boston for a football game on the weekend in November and you were like $3,000 for a flight. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm worth laying down on a red eye. Yes.
But it's not that far.
See the shit she's pulling? Like, that's ridiculous.
It's not too far.
But it's coming up right in the moment.
Yeah. Would you ever feel comfortable? Let's just say I was the breadwinner. Would you ever feel comfortable asking me for money?
No, never.
Because I would not do. I wouldn't feel this.
I wouldn't
feel comfortable with you either, with asking you for money.
But again, do people think like this, right? So I personally am built a way, and I believe you are too, that I would go create this abundance and this wealth before I was in a position where I had to ask you. And if I had to ask you and you felt like it was your money and we didn't create it together, even though it's under, let's say, your name, I'd be with the wrong fucking person.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't showing up and I'd have to have a hard discussion with myself.
Right.
To man the fuck up.
Exactly. Yeah, just to do that. Yeah. If you have that dynamic between the two people and one person has to ask the other person for money, there's always this keeping score. Yep. And it eventually comes into this well, I feel like I have to go ask daddy for money or whatever. And then it becomes resentment. I mean, I don't know enough people or have had enough conversations with people that have prenups, but I feel like if you were like, hey, you need to sign a prenup before we get married, I would already resent you.
Let's say your family was independently wealthy and I was marrying in.
We're far from it.
No shit. But let's just say my goal in life would be to
be wealthier than them.
Not even wealthier than them, that you would never have to ask them for a penny again.
You know what it reminds me of?
Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman.
I knew you were going to go there.
Show.
But let's not, The Greatest Showman, great fucking movie. But let's take it a step back. So some men, in my coaching, especially in the real estate world with women, which are a lot of successful women, a lot of women have this guilt and shame about being successful and challenging their husband. Yeah. So they will actually bring down their shine in order to play small so that their husbands don't feel emasculated.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm pro man being a man, I'd be like, don't you dare do that. Your goal is to rise as high as you. And if you're not with a man who is going to do everything in his power to make you and help you rise, then you're with the wrong man. Because the man should be like, not only do I want to see my queen shine as vibrantly as possible, then it's my requirement to go 10x her. Not in a
not even monetarily.
Not in a competition, but
And that's why we work.
I believe everybody should be like this. I believe this isn't something like this is my opinion or your opinion. I don't see how everyone in the world shouldn't be thinking exactly like this. I want to grow as much as possible. And it's easy to be like, oh, well, you're making it monetary. No, this isn't everything.
No,
you can improve yourself in all facets of life.
Well, take your weight loss journey, that year where you lost a ton of weight. That to me was that year. If you look at the entire relationship that we've had, that year I was the most attracted to you I've ever been. Cause I was like, holy shit, he's fucking stepping up. He's
Yep.
taking care of shit. He's like,
But what
that
how
is sexy.
But it was weird. You didn't almost sabotage it, but there were times where you were like, fuck.
Well, I didn't want to get left behind.
Yes.
And I'd be like, well, I'm sleeping until fucking 7 because, I'm a woman and I need more sleep than men. but yeah, I didn't want to be left behind.
But
and you were so fast.
It positively, and that's when like these things can compound in a good way, but they can become very negative.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I was triggered or you were triggered, and we've done this, but you got to have real, honest, open conversations around this where like, I'm not holding you back.
Totally.
Right. So it's just a deeper conversation of how do I want to show up? I would not feel comfortable if you had your own gig and you made more money than me.
Well, that's very self-aware.
It depends. There's a big depends on it.
I think
like if I was part of it, because we do everything together.
Like if you were, let's just say if I was front of the house and you were back of the house or vice versa, and there was a part of that, I think that you would be okay with it. But I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean.
And then there's been some times where I'm like, like if you're not leveling up or you're kind of stagnant, where I'm like, all right, let's go.
How would you feel?
What? If you were?
If you made more money than me, like in that thing?
I think that, I don't think it would be about the money. I agree. I think it would be about the leveling up and about the investment in yourself. But if you were like just doing, like, let's say we were in philanthropy work, right?
Yep.
It has nothing, it's nonprofit work, but you were making an impact. I would be like, I want to work harder and make more money so I could support
that's fair.
Beautiful goal, right? That I can be aligned with and that I believe in and that I'm about. But I think that if you were just like, if you just were chilling and didn't have, like, talk about another sensitive subject. If there's like a person in the relationship where it's a man and a woman and the woman is taking care of the kids and she's working and she's doing this and the guy doesn't have a job and he's just sitting on his ass at home,
playing video games.
To me is a hard fucking pass.
Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget. I think I bought like a PlayStation for the Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not a big video game guy, but I got Call of Duty and I was playing Call of Duty and you were like, you're not playing fucking video games. That's not what I was like, who the hell are you? I'm like, I'm going to play.
I was like, if you turn into this person.
I mean, oh my God.
No.
You were so pissed off. And I was like, chill the fuck out.
Because you've seen that before in relationships. And then the guy wonders why, like, his wife never wants to have sex with him. Well, hello. You're not contributing at all. Yeah. And that's a whole nother conversation about,
but like, as a sedation.
Oh, I agree. No, I agree. I'm talking about like on a full, like a level to where it's like becomes your identity.
Let's go back to the money for a second. Technically, I don't make more money than you. You don't make more money than me because our things are so I mean, you could make an argument that if we wanted to just go 1099 versus W-2, that the thing that supposedly your name is on, you make more money.
Yeah.
But I don't look at it like that because I'm like, I built it with you.
Well, and we collab, we have co-creation.
If I really want to be a dick, I'd be like, well, I just put the pretty face out there and I fucking did the whole thing.
Yeah, right. Okay. And that's when I get defensive and I'm like, okay. No.
But that's again, and I don't know, maybe that works for other people being individualistic and then just meeting in the middle, and maybe we're not looking at it right. I'm like, I'm not an in-between guy.
The only argument I have on the other side, right? Because you were like, I can't see a world where people don't think like this. The only way I can think like, okay, that's how that works is that like if you're individual and like we've had problems with because we co-create everything business-wise, right? We like all the money.
We co-create our whole life.
Our whole life. But we've run into times where it's hard to come out of those roles. Like when I'm super driven and focused on something business, like it's hard for me to be a wife or to be like, I want to be intimate in bed with you because I just had a whole day of like work relationships and conversations with you. So I could see how those relationships, there could be pros on like being like, we worked, everything is kind of separate and now we've come home, we're together.
That's fair.
We're like connected and we don't have to have that play a role because it's always just been part of our conversation.
I think that's boundaries and really committing to getting the right support and help so that we can be husband and wife at this time, parents at this time, girlfriend and boyfriend at this time. I mean, I always joke, right? Like we're on vacation, whether it's the third night or the third drink, I feel like, Mom Angie dissipating, work Angie dissipating, and then that last one where you're like free. I'm like, oh, I got my girl. It's on tonight. Everything's on the fucking menu, right? And
Yep.
so that makes sense. I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Leave It to Beaver or the Mad Men type way where like the roles are so specific.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're traditional in the sense where you want me to be the king.
Yep.
But at the same time,
But I want to be the queen.
it's non-traditional or feminist in the way you want to be a different version of the queen, a very modern version of the queen, and we're putting it together. And I think that's where it works. Like I think this story is worth talking about. When we first got married and our crazy selves, we gave up jobs that were paying us. I mean, I think I was making 150 as a manager and then another 50. We were both making about 200K each, right? And we said, fuck it, and just moved to Texas.
Yeah. Just for the hell of it.
Right? Because we wanted to open a real estate company and doing this whole thing. And we came back. And then in jump and figure it out along the way, we had 2 kids in 18 months. So here we are, brand new business, two babies. And you looked at me and you're like, I remember in that house, you were like, I'm not going to be the woman who cooks and cleans and does laundry. And I knew what I was getting myself into with you.
Yeah, because I was never that person.
But we were having stress over this.
We still do.
To an extent.
Yeah.
I think you actually stress more about it than me.
Well, yeah.
And I looked at you and I'm like, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay with this. Like I didn't have any, and I think this is where people fall apart. One of the reasons why we're actually doing this whole thing in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Is when I could have been like, no. This is the way it's done. This is the way I expect it. And we could have went to war right then and there with a new business and 2 children, 2 girls. Whereas I looked at you and I'm like, well, I'm not fucking doing it. So I guess we
now
better
have
figure
to
it
find a
out.
solution.
Yeah. And then was there guilt and shame? I mean, a little bit.
100%. I mean, when we first hired Maria as our nanny, I felt terrible. Remember, I was like, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to just be with the kids. And then I was like, oh my God, like I can't do this. I'm bored out of my mind. I still have guilt and shame about some of it. I'm like, I should be able to do it all. And then I think about Meghan Trainor's song, Superwoman, and I shouldn't be Superwoman, or I don't have to be Superwoman because I can't do it all.
We had to navigate through what the roles were. And even then, in hindsight, I would be cool with just you making the money it would cost to have the people helping us. Because I think no one should have to not be able to grow or be capped.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but as a woman, I feel like I want to be able to provide and work and contribute, but I also want to not have to do that. I want my man to step up and to be able to provide for our family fully, because I'm a strong woman. I'm independent. I know I can make it on my own. I could do all the things financially, but I don't want to have to do that. I want a man that's like, if I wanted to stay home, and even if I wanted to stay home and have a full staff, I want a man to be like, I got you. Yeah.
Right. Because one of my big goals is to have such an abundant life, especially with financial freedom, is so that not only you, but also my father, is in a position where you could work to the day you die, especially him being 72, but not have to. And I think he's kind of there as well, right? But like, I want that too. But even that though, you got to get clarity because things change. So if you want that, but you also want a private jet, then
I don't want a private jet.
I understand. But
But I get what you're
the
saying.
number matters,
No, it totally
right? And
matters.
so like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So speaking of the number, and you did mention the Bentley a little bit. What is the number? If I went and bought a $288,000 Batmobile Bentley, which I got my eye on, blacked out, murdered out, right? Without having a conversation with you. And I drove into the garage.
I might cry. I'd be like crying happy tears because I'd be like, you know what? He just bought it and I'm going to kill him. But he better fucking show up now.
So here's what's interesting.
That's what I would think,
But
honestly.
I think you got to go a little bit deeper because it's in relation to how much money we're making and how much money we have. So
Yeah.
at what number where you're like, screw this, I don't care. You see, and you don't even have to say the number.
Yeah, I don't even know the number.
But that's how this game works, because in relation to what we're producing,
Yeah.
you wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But if we were at that number, I may show up with a Rolls-Royce Spectre that's $488,000.
Yeah.
Which would probably make you feel uncomfortable versus...
Then I'd faint.
I understand, but like, let's say you're making, I don't know,
No,
$5 million a year. Like, what is it, 10% of your income, right? Like,
Can I just tell you what my thought process was when you mentioned it?
Okay.
In my brain, I'm going, he better not fucking do that, right? Like, if he does that, I might have a nervous breakdown. I was like, okay, if he does this, I know he's going to show up in this way, and it'll only activate him further because I trust you in that aspect.
So I was watching a TikTok, or no, it was an Instagram, and a guy was like, "You're a bitch if you have to ask your wife permission."
Yeah, I believe that.
Right? So for instance, here's where you would care less. If I came home and I was like, yeah, I invested $300,000 in this business that I believe is going to 10x, and I did my due diligence, I just wanted to tell you that, listen, there's $300,000 invested in this, you probably wouldn't give it a second thought.
No, probably not. You did that.
I did do that.
Yeah, I know. And you didn't ask me.
That's right, I didn't ask you.
Yeah, no, you didn't ask me.
So that 250 brought us back within a
You've
year.
also done it with some other
$50,000
frickin'
ones, yeah.
which you didn't ask me that one either.
Interesting though.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah,
right.
those you didn't ask me. I don't know if you don't. You may have forgotten that.
I feel a little defensive on this.
I mean, it worked out. But
so it's like,
enough,
so it worked out. This is kind of like when we're at the casino.
No, it's the same conversation with your freaking car. Like the car, okay.
I don't think it is. I think you could justify it more because the other one has an opportunity to make us money. So
but I think the car does too. And that's how I had to justify it in my head. Is I was like, all right, if he gets in that car and every time he gets in that car, he feels like he's like a fucking
this is going to
badass,
be
and
the
he
most
goes and
expensive podcast or conversation you've ever had in your life.
well, not necessarily. It's going to make you a lot more money. But no, I think that for me to be comfortable spending that kind of money, I have to justify it in my head. And it has to be my focus is growth.
I got it. But the thing is, you justifying in your head has to be layered onto or added onto the communication with me, because your justification is not always going to be the same as mine. This is where people fall apart. So if they have to be willing to collide and have a true conversation around, hey, I believe you're worth it. We're going to spend $15,000 just for you to get a personal stylist that does not include traveling there and does not include
The clothes. Yeah.
I think you're worth it. I think that it will, there's even studies around completely changing your wardrobe can make you a ton of money. And if the manifestation of projection of what you're worth is how you treat yourself, people are going to treat you the way you treat yourself. So if I'm rolling up in a Bentley, not to prove to anybody other than myself that I'm worth it, then people are going to look at me in that frame.
Totally.
So what's the number that you would be like, I cannot believe you spent that money without permission from me?
What's that number?
Yes.
Probably $50,000.
50,000. How about yourself? What would give you pause?
Yeah, 50 both ways.
Gotcha.
I would spend 50 without asking you.
Yet you came home and said, I dropped $5,000 for this philanthropy, and you almost had I did it, and is that okay way about it?
I know. That was my scarcity brain coming in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a spender or a saver?
I'm a saver. You're a spender.
And I believe I am a spender when it comes to little things, and I am a saver when it comes to big ones. I think you're more willing to empty the accounts to go try living in another state or doing anything like that and just jumping out of the plane. Whereas me, my number on what I'll do on cars and masterminds and coaching, it's when it comes to like the multiple $1 million things that I'm like, But then I'm kind of being a hypocrite right in the middle of us talking, because I was the one out of everyone around us, you included, my father included, who was like, we're going to go buy a $7 million building and I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And I think both of you were shitting your pants more than even I was, even though I was. And I was the one who was jumping down this whole game by myself.
I did a good job of not shitting my pants with that whole situation.
Because it was on me to pull it off.
No, because it had a return.
True, but it was a huge risk.
Validated.
Huge
Totally.
risk. You want to talk about big numbers? You're talking a $50,000 a month nut, $1 million out of our account, money you need in order to grow this big life. You have to have huge capacity, and you have to have a conversation. Like there's so many men and women that want to make these big moves, but they don't have the support of the other person. Therefore, they're getting second guess. It's hard enough to like get yourself there, and then get the validation from the one you love the most that it's going to affect the most. And we did it together. Big moves. These all-in moments are the ones where like life changes, right?
Yep. Scared money doesn't make money.
Hell yeah, baby.
And my coach always talks about your self-worth is a direct reflection of your net worth.
Higher your self-worth.
Yep.
Higher the net worth.
Exactly.
100%. And now on the other side of this building sitting on a value of minimum 15 million based on vision and activation and things like that. And the game just keeps going and going. But to bring it all the way down, the first place we ever rented was a little less than $7,000 for this building, for the business, right?
Yep.
It was a rental. And I remember looking at that going, this is a personal guarantee, and I'm shitting my pants.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm going to have to move to Mexico if I can't pay this, right?
Yeah.
And you and I were all in together. So the alignment happens at a more fundamental space. I can't imagine in any way, shape, or form not doing this completely side by side. And yes, I feel like I'm the fucking king, but the queen is as important. And I always joke, and I think it's a little toxic, and I want your take on it, especially for the women who are probably going to come after me on this. I believe I'm 50.1.
Yeah.
And you're 49.9.
And I want that.
Yeah.
Because I also want to show our girls that it's not necessarily a toxic masculine role for them to be taken care of financially, especially if I did want to go out and do philanthropy work or nonprofit or stay at home with my kids or go back into those roles. Like, I just want the option to be able to choose.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how many people actually have that dynamic. Like, we got to do a poll or something to see how many people keep it joint and how many people do everything individual.
And how many strong women want their man to be the man,
Yeah.
regardless of how strong and how much they want to rise. I'll even see you sometimes. I think about that video of like the lion, and he's just hanging out, and he's not doing anything. And then the female, the lioness, comes and fucks with him, and he's like, I don't want to be fucked with. And then like eventually he gets up and he's like, he shows his whole mane and everything.
I remember this story completely different.
Oh, you're talking about the jackals.
I'm talking about the lioness is being attacked by the hyenas, and she's like biting at him, and she's like, motherfucker, get away from me. And she's like keeping him at bay, but she's still getting attacked. And then the lion just like devours and starts throwing the hyenas all over the place. And the girl's like, yeah, that's my man.
Yeah.
That's how I want my relationship. Or it's the picture of the lioness with like her fierceness and her like all in her essence, but right behind her is the lion. And she's like, he got my back. And that's what I want.
And he's paying the bill.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, final take.
I would do it just like we're doing.
You do it just like we do.
Yeah. I would have everything joint. I would make sure you were aligned, have the conversation, create the trust between the relationship and the connection. I think it helps with resentment and keeping score. And so I think that it like eliminates a lot of conflicts around that.
And I'm in, of course, agreement with you. If you're willing to share your seed and make a child and make all of your precious time in this world together, and you're sharing it with them, then you got to be all in. Then what's the point?
Yeah.
If not, don't get married. You're either all in or you're all out. And why live this life transactionally and keeping score? You should be fighting for it.